All right. Howdy, y'all, and welcome back to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine. I'm Chesten.
And I'm Christina. And today I would like to open that door to a practice that works beneath the words and beneath stories. And it works directly with the body and the nervous system. And that's somatic breath work. So I want to do just an introduction to what somatic breath work is, because there are other things we can stream out, further down the road in other episodes to dig in a little bit more deeper. But I just kind of wanted to bring it to the forefront of just what it is, just the basics of it. And have you ever taken a somatic breath work?
I have
Like
not.
class or what was that? No.
I haven't taken a class or anything. I mean, I've heard about it, but I've never taken a somatic breathwork class.
Okay. And I've taken one like in person, and just from me talking to other people, some people, their intensities are different. Just so if anyone's ever done it before or hasn't done it before, there's different, I guess, variations of it. Just depends on who you go to, like who your practitioner is and who's facilitating it. Some are, I would say, low key, where the ones that I go to are pretty intense. That's why for me, it's always good to have, like when I go to a class, usually the practitioners will offer it one-on-one, or they'll do it in a class setting. So the ones I did, they were the class setting and they were pretty intense, but it's nice because the practitioner's there to help facilitate it, and they create a space of safety because they're always viewing the room and everybody that's going through the breathing process. So it's nothing to be afraid of because you have someone that's highly trained in it if you go into an intense one. But I'll give a brief explanation. So if no one knows what somatic breath work, it is a body-based practice. It uses our conscious breathing to reconnect us to sensations, emotions, and our nervous system. So the word somatic, it comes from the word soma, and that meaning is the living, felt experiences of the body. Not the body as an object, but the body as something you experience from the inside. So unlike breath practices focused on performance and control, somatic breath work is more about listening to what's inside. And that listening, it's asking us, what is our body holding? What's it holding on to? What did my nervous system learn to do to survive? What can become possible when our body finally feels safe enough to let go? So held emotions, and when we hold emotions, it affects our nervous system. And when we experience stress, traumas, and those could be little traumas, big traumas, and sometimes we don't know what we're really holding on to. That could be, I don't want to say changing who we are or not fully living to our full potential, but it could be anything that you wouldn't even think that could have been a stressor or a trauma from our past. It could have been something in grade school you don't even remember. You could be holding on to that. So that's why when we go to these somatic breath works or we do it on our own, this helps just release that. So when we experience those stresses, traumas, and that overwhelming emotion, especially if it happens repeatedly and it happens without support, the nervous system then starts to adapt to that. And these adaptations, they are intelligent. They're intelligent because they want to keep us in survival mode. They help us to survive. So we adapt in those stressors and those traumas. But over time, the emotions that couldn't fully be processed, now they become held or trapped into our inner body. And it's trapped in our muscles, our fascia, our postures, our breathing patterns. So when this happens, the brain and the body, they create these neural pathways around that protection. So what happens in the nervous system during those stresses or those traumas is when we experience that stress, our nervous system shifts into that survival mode. The automatic nervous system, it takes the lead, especially with the sympathetic, and that sympathetic is that fight, flight, the sequence of what happens is we perceive a threat. It could be a real threat or just a perceived threat. And what happens is our brain doesn't wait for logic. It reacts within milliseconds. The amygdala scans for the danger and reacts within milliseconds. So the next step is the stress chemicals flood our body, and that is the cortisol and the adrenaline. And then our heart rate increases, our breathing changes, our muscles tense, and our higher reasoning goes offline because we're now in survival mode. That is the prefrontal cortex, and that's where the decision making is, the emotion regulation. Those become less active because now we're in survival mode. Survival is that's why it's so quick. And if the stress is short-lived, the parasympathetic nervous system, it can bring you back to the baseline. But if this stress is chronic or it's traumatic and it's not supported, the system never fully resets. So that's why this somatic breath work, when we go in there, it's basically helping us create a space to release those emotions. And so trauma and how it reshapes our neural pathways. So the neural pathways strengthen through the repetition, and trauma is highly intensity repetition. So when we have trauma, it's always there. It's repeated. It's repeated because we're going into that survival mode. So over time, our brain becomes better at detecting that threat. And even when a threat doesn't even exist, because we're in that survival mode. And the amygdala grows more reactive. The hippocampus, where our memory is, that may shrink and become less active. And the neutral cues get wired for danger response. So in other words, our brain learns to survive extremely well, but at a cost. And this is why trauma isn't just about a bad memory. It's a pattern. It's pattern nervous system response. And this is something that we can work on through somatic breath work to help us re-regulate and help us to not always having to go into a survival mode. And so the subconscious and the impact, and this is where it really shows up, is because that trauma response is they're stored and they're below the conscious thought. They influence us without asking for permission because, again, we're in that survival mode. And so we may notice emotional reactions that feel bigger in the moment than what they actually are. You could be hypervigilant, like chronic hypervigilance, or you could feel exhaustion. If you get into the state of like people pleasing, avoidance, or control behaviors. If you have a difficulty in relaxing, even when life feels safe, you don't have the capacity just to relax. Some things you may feel is like if you shut down or a numbness or you're feeling disassociation. So the strong body reacts without that clear mental reason. And so that the subconscious isn't trying to sabotage us, but what it's trying to do is protect us based on old data, based on old processes that we've had to deal with in that survival mode. So the nervous system, it's there to ask what kept us safe last time. That's why it's so quick. It's milliseconds. And even if that last time was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it could have been yesterday or day one of our birth.
Time it sounds like with time that it kind of can collapse depending on the level of trauma.
Yeah.
So like the person is back depending on what the situation is that reminds them of a previous trauma. It's like time collapses and that trauma just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think also is because it is almost at a subconscious level because our brain already knew what that past was.
It's instinct.
It's instinct. It's instinctual. It learned, what do I need to do to feel safe right now?
Yeah, what do I need to do to survive?
Yep. And it could be, and like I said earlier, it might not even be a real perceived threat. Our body doesn't know that. It's already in that survival mode.
Well, and I wonder too, with some of that stuff, because if you think about it, depending on what we were taught as kids, "Oh, if you don't" I've heard this, like, "If you don't go to sleep, then this monster's gonna come out and whatever." You know what I mean? So sometimes I wonder, because kids can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality, like, up to the age of 7, I guess, 6 or 7, the way the brain works, of course, depending on the child, but logic and reasoning. So even, the threat of punishment or the threat of, "Don't go outside, the boogeyman will get you," or things like that. So like you said, it may not be that a specific trauma happened, but the threat of that trauma happened.
Yep. And and that couldn't be, on a subconscious level. It's already
Mhm,
if we held on to that, it's in here.
mhm,
So when we're thinking about the nervous system and that trauma, so that trauma, it lives in our body. It's stored in our body, not just in our mind. And we know when we're safe, and we know even if we feel safe or even if we know we're safe, sometimes it feels like we aren't safe. And that's because that nervous system had already learned through sensations of past experiences and not through that language or reasoning alone. But with somatic breath work, this is where we can start re-regulating and recreating neural pathways to not always have us in that fight, flight, survival mode. The hopeful part is the neuroplasticity in our brain. The brain is adaptable. So just as stress rewires the nervous system towards threats, safety also can rewire it towards regulation. And this is where that somatic breath work comes in and can be so beneficial. So I can never say enough how much somatic breath work is just brilliant and amazing. And you may not even know if you're holding on to something until you are in a session and you're like, okay, interesting. I didn't know. It has a capacity to really change who we are and how we view ourselves and view the world. So I highly recommend it if anyone has not done it before. So how somatic breathwork creates that change is it's the breath is one of the few systems in the body that is both automatic and intentional. And that makes the direct bridge into that nervous system. So as we breathe consciously, slowly, intentionally, and with awareness, we send signals of safety to our body. And over time, this helps soften the protective responses that we have and creates that space for sensations, that space for emotions, and a space for the body to complete responses it never got to finish before. So when there's trapped emotions, they're generally allowed to surface and to move without force. And that so now the nervous system begins to recognize itself. So this is where the new neural pathways start coming in. This is where they are starting to form instead of the pathways built around previously around that survival. So now the brain begins to create those pathways associated with regulation, with presence, and with safety. And now the body learns that, I don't have to stay on guard. I can be here where I'm at and I feel safe. It's safe. So why feeling safe is the foundation here is because that healing doesn't happen because we understand something intellectually. Healing happens when the body experiences safety. So that's what that somatic breath work, if it's feeling that safety, it's allowing you now to feel that. So in somatic breath work, it doesn't tell the nervous system to calm down. What it does is it shows it. It shows the nervous system how to calm down. So each regulated breath becomes new information, and each moment of presence becomes a new experience. And slowly and consistently, the nervous system updates the map. It updates the map of the world it once had. So this is how the new neural pathways replace the old ones. And it's not through effort, but through felt experiences. And I don't know if we want at the end, if we want, we can do a short little somatic breath work. This would be one that we would just do on our own if instead of a class, or I could save that for down the road.
My only concern
Yeah.
with
What
that
do you
is
think?
depending on the person, if that would lead to them
Yeah.
having an experience where there isn't
Yeah.
someone there to help them through it, that would be my only concern. So maybe if it's like that caveat of like,
Yeah.
"Hey, if everything's going great in your life or something, then maybe try this out, but if you feel like it's not a good
Yeah.
idea, please don't do it," or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
That would be my only concern with it because it can be so powerful, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think maybe, like, down the road, I can maybe create something, which is just it's literally 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's why I always highly recommend having a facilitator there. Especially for
Yeah,
your first one, so you know what to experience, you know what's coming through.
and with the facilitators, I mean, obviously, they're trained in breath work, but do they have, like, additional training? Like, are they trained
Like,
like, are
training
they
as in
therapists, or are they, like, therapists or counselors or something like that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that part I don't know, but all I know is because I haven't really checked into I actually wanted to take a class on somatic breath work, not for me to teach it, but for me to gain
Yeah.
more knowledge for my own personal practice to dive deeper in. But the ones I've gone to,
Yeah.
I they're very supportive, so I know they have to have additional ethics train I would feel there would be a lot of compassion and ethics training with it because they help it's almost a facilitator is almost cradling each person. Yeah, emotionally in that
Well, and I guess
space.
it's one of those for a person who has, like, a history of trauma or something like, it's okay to vet their facilitator to make sure that they have the tools in case something does bubble up, that kind of more is along that aspect. Does that make sense? Like, it's okay to vet
Yeah.
your somatic breathwork
Yeah, oh
person
yeah.
because,
Yeah. I think
like,
if
for some people, there's a certain level that, the person may be educated with that it's okay, but maybe for people who have, like, PTSD or some type of, like something like that going on, they may want to like, it's okay to ask it what all their training is, I guess, the only thing I would say too, because I don't know how the somatic stuff works, but it seems like there are some programs where it's like a person doesn't have to have, like, a background in healthcare or in trauma or
yeah, I was gonna say somatic breath work is just another healing modality like Reiki,
Mhm.
like sound
Okay.
bath. So, like even in sound bath, everybody experiences
True.
right there, sound bath, you're releasing, you know, pent up emotions, feelings, and even with Reiki, like I've seen that in person myself of those built
Mhm.
up. So I think anyone that's looking to find some kind of release and relaxation and re-regulation, somatic breath work would be definitely for them. Like I know they do this for PTSD and they do this for people that addiction. It's really good for people with addictions. So it's because it just yeah, it's just such it's yeah.
I guess the reason I was asking that or adding that caveat to that, that it's okay to be aware of yourself and be aware of the practitioner because I've seen people have breakthroughs, but it happened with people who were not trained to handle it. So
Mhm.
they did the start like for Reiki, for example, or for like modalities like that, like, they were trained in that modality, but that person in particular had a very intense breakthrough and they did not have the training or background to help them process it because it was out of their wheelhouse.
Gotcha.
It was out of their scope. So that was the only reason I was asking with that stuff. Or it's like for me, like I have a list of therapists. So if I do like Reiki or energy work with the person and they have a huge breakthrough, I have a list of people that I'm like, hey, this sounds like something to explore with a trained professional, like, that is outside my scope. Yay, you've had this, like, you know, healing experience, but here are people that you can go to further help with that or navigate that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's always a good idea to have. So, somatic breath work. So, how this practice unfolds over time is with consistency. So, like for me, I go once a month. It's at my yoga studio. She facilitates us beautifully. So, When we are consistent with our somatic breath work, the nervous system now becomes more flexible, and that old protective patterns soften, and our emotional responses feel less overwhelming. And now the body learns it no longer has to hold onto everything together. It's not about erasing the past, but it's about teaching the body that the present moment is different and that safety is possible. So somatic breath work, and here's where it supports so many things. So this especially supportive if you feel stuck, if you feel stress or you have some kind of anxiety or you're struggling to relax even when you are trying to relax and that's still a struggle. If you feel disconnected with your own body, if you sense emotions that don't have clear stories, and you're wanting healing that doesn't rely on reliving that experience. I think that's one of the things here is we don't have to relive those past experiences and traumas through somatic breath work. The somatic breath works, it meets us where we are. At the pace our nervous system can handle. So that's my little introduction to somatic breath work. And always remember that your body adapted for a reason, and our nervous system has been protecting us, and that with each breath and awareness and that safety, we can gently teach our nervous system something new now. Yeah. And I might, in the show notes, maybe put a little link to someone if they want more information on somatic breath work, just
Yeah.
to see where it's at, see
Mhm.
how they can even just do small little breath works. And even the breath works is
Yeah.
sometimes is almost, it's just bringing ourselves back in. And it's just a couple, 2 or 3 breaths. And it's that simple. Yeah. So anything else you want to add to this?
I mean, sounds like a good introduction because I have no experience with it. So
It can be pretty intense in your body,
Mhm.
but not in an intense of trauma based. It's very, you feel releasing of things you didn't know you were holding on to. And it has been life altering for me.
That's awesome.
Every experience I've had has been beautiful, beautiful experiences.
Yay.
Yay. All
That's
right.
wonderful. Thank you for bringing up this topic.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. So even if people, want to find out more about it, check out the link in the show notes. And also look around in your area, someone that may be offering in any kind of healing area or space. Usually it's like a yoga space or it's something like that. See if anyone offers somatic breath work and kind of see who they are and look into what they have to offer. And sometimes they'll even have introductory classes of like, hey, if you don't know about it, we're just going to have like a little 3-hour class on what somatic breath work is. So they can walk you through more of the beginning and ends of where it stemmed from and the process through it and the process afterwards. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Do you want me to say it? All righty then.
Absolutely can.
No. Okay.
I'm like, you're always welcome to.
No. That is
You're
like
like,
that's like your what do you call it?
that's my contribution.
No, that's like your punch in and your
Tagline.
punch outs.
Oh, there you
You
go.
bring us in and you bring us out.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine.